demonstrated, these programs are not reliably implemented in communities. Our program is relatively unique. NYU has a program like the one that we run, I think, or that's similar in some ways. UCLA has a program that's similar in some ways. Most of them, NYU does, most of them don't have the same focus on psychotherapeutic counseling that we do at the MCP. But I also wanted to call this out because the reason that these programs are so difficult to implement is actually funding. In the introduction, when you came up and you talked about what Medicare will and won't reimburse, they will not reimburse for almost everything that we do. They will reimburse for individual or family counseling provided only by a licensed social worker, not by a licensed mental health counselor, not by someone with a provisional licensure who's under supervision, which other forms of insurance will reimburse. They will only reimburse very specific things, which is a challenge. I'm mentioning this too because you seem like a group of people who are active advocates, and I think this is an area that is a great place for advocacy because there's some very sensible low-hanging fruit that we can do with what we already have, but there need to be ways to pay for it. As an example, the new Alzheimer's drug that was just approved by the FDA costs, they're estimating $56,000 or more to implement in a year. That's more than we pay one of our social workers who has provisional licensure. And our social worker with provisional licensure can run support groups for multiple support groups during a year, see people for individual counseling, and go out into the community and do educational presentations, and thereby reach hundreds of people for the same cost of providing a drug for 1 year for one person. So I think where we as a country put our resources, yes, we need to provide those drugs, but there's a lot of things that we can provide with the same money that we're putting for less impact in other areas. So it's just something to think about. So this is our current team, and I wanted to introduce the team because I think many people here know Ed Shaw, and I'm going to talk about him in a minute. He was the founding director of the Memory Counseling Program, and I want to be very clear that he is still very involved. I have Ed on speed dial, I think, on my phone for whenever I have questions. He's just phenomenal. But he did not want to be working full-time. He wants to be doing things like going to Aruba, which he did a couple of weeks ago with his lovely wife, Claire. We also have had some shifts in our team. There may be people that you've interacted with in the past. COVID was very difficult for our team, in part because we had a lot of young mothers, and there were changes in childcare, there are changes in priorities. So I wanted to introduce our team here because it is some really wonderful people. Samantha Culler is someone who's been with our group for several years now. She's a licensed clinical social worker. She's our clinical director now, and she is just fantastic. She provides individual and family and group counseling services. She provides oversight for our other counselors, and she's a phenomenal human being. She also has 8 cats and a wonderful husband, and will always be happy to talk with you about felines. Beverly Ingram is someone else that if you've ever interacted with our program, you have met. She is the face of our program. She is our patient experience guru, is what we call her, because she is the person who makes everybody feel welcome when they call in. She remembers, I think, everyone that has walked through our door and their spouse and what's happening with them. She's just remarkable. We have some new team members. One is David McLaughlin. David is a remarkable counselor. He actually came to us as a second career. His first career was working in marketing and advertising. He went to Savannah College of Art and Design. He does beautiful design work, which is helpful for us. But also, he's an amazing therapist. He came to us as a social work student from the UNC School of Social Work, and we've been lucky to be able to keep him. He's in the process of attaining his licensure right now, and is currently seeing clients and running groups. Olivia Simpson is a licensed clinical social worker, and we were very lucky to get her. She came to us from Wilmington, where she was running a PACE program. PACE is a federally funded program. It's the program for all-inclusive care for the elderly. So Olivia she came to us with a lot of experience, not only running support groups, but also understanding the network of supports that are needed for caring for people in the community. So she's a great resource. And our current social work intern is also absolutely outstanding. She is our current Anderson Fellow, and she is worked at Wake Forest in a research capacity in one of our NIH-funded research studies for the past 4 years, and then she is doing her master's degree in social work. She's a really gifted counselor. She also has a very good head for research and for organizing and outreach. So we feel really, really lucky to have her as our intern right now. This is our mission statement, and I think Marv really already partly read it, but our mission is to help people living with cognitive impairment or dementia and their care partners navigate the challenges of daily life with dignity and purpose by building a supportive community through strengths-based counseling, education, group activities, research, and outreach. Some of these things have been a little challenging to do with COVID, but we've actually managed to keep a lot of them in place or put them back into place virtually. So you may be familiar with our story, and the story of this program starts with Ed Shaw. And as you may know, Ed had an amazing wife, Rebecca, and that's Ed and Rebecca over to the left side of your screen. At the age of 53, Rebecca got a diagnosis of early onset Alzheimer's disease, and she died, I think it was 8 years later. Ed's response to this is so beautiful, and I think that there are people in this room who can really appreciate the sacrifice or the choice that he made, which was, I think, just an incredibly brave one. So Ed, you may not know, was recruited here from the Mayo Clinic. He came to Wake Forest at the top of his game. He was brought in to run a radiation oncology program, and he had NIH-funded research to look at care for people who had brain cancer and were getting brain radiation to treat it. He was given funds to hire an entire team of faculty under him, which he did. They were incredibly successful at getting grants. And he was in the middle of all of this when Rebecca got her diagnosis. And his response was to step back from being chairman of that program and to go back to school and get a master's degree in counseling so that he could learn how to provide the support that he felt his family did not receive in the process of this diagnosis. And the courage and love that took, I tear up when I talk about it. It's really meaningful to me. It's also very meaningful to me that my position was named after Rebecca, and I'm so grateful to the Stricklands for making that choice when they endowed that position. The services that we provide are services that Ed really envisioned, and we've continued to expand them. So when the program started, it actually started as a volunteer program. When I joined, Ed started the program in 2011. I joined the faculty in 2012, and Jeff Williamson, who many of you probably know, introduced me and Ed because Jeff knew that I was a licensed counselor as well as a researcher, and he said, "You need to meet Ed Shaw." At that point, all of the only services that we were routinely providing were support groups. We didn't have any space that was allocated. We reserved conference rooms to hold our groups at the hospital, or Ed came out to places like this and ran support groups. The people running the support groups were faculty, and we volunteered our time to do it. It was faculty from the undergraduate campus, and I also volunteered my time. From this, the program has grown into, as you see, having paid staff who can be available to provide individual and family counseling, education, community outreach, and continue to run the support groups. Ed has published the books on the support groups that he's developed. The curriculum is now widely available, and in a beautiful irony, Novant is now running our groups because they are so good. The services that we provide, like I said, we provide individual, couples, and family counseling. We provide support groups, and we provide two different kinds of support groups. One is closed-ended 10-week psychoeducational support groups. So these are groups that provide not only support, but also education about the disease process. We have different groups that are tailored to different needs along the journey of Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Once someone has finished the 10-week group, we have monthly ongoing groups that people can join. We've been running these virtually, which can be challenging. We've also started now running hybrid groups where we meet in person and virtually, which has been a learning curve, but we're all doing it here today too, and we're all getting the hang of it. Education is a mission at Wake Forest as an academic medical center. It's also a mission of the Memory Counseling Program. We provide education to geriatrics fellows who are medical doctors. They come and join in with our support groups, and we give talks to them during their training to help teach them about the importance of supporting caregivers and different programs and paths that are available to them so that they can know to be thinking about the services when they are having people with dementia come into their own practice. We also train neuroscience students to give them clinical contact with caregivers and people with dementia. We have Wake Forest undergraduate students who volunteer with our program at different times. And we routinely have, I think every year we've had a UNC School of Social Work intern for at least the past 3 or 4 years. And we have another one coming who is Spanish speaking for our next student, which is going to be great for us and help us expand our services into the community. And we're getting ready to interview her and make sure that she's a good fit next week. We also provide education in the community. We work with Senior Services, Shepherd Center, and many different organizations through the community to do that. We hold, I didn't update part of that slide. We hold community events. In the past, we've held community events including memory cafes and also working with Aperture Cinema to have movies during the day that are relevant for Alzheimer's, or are good events for a caregiver to bring someone with dementia to a suitable movie that they can have an outing and have a way to get out in a productive way. Obviously, COVID has put a halt to a lot of that, but we're looking at how to get that started up again. We experimented around with doing some of those things online, and that may be something that we also try to do again. So I am not only a counselor, but a PhD researcher. I've had multiple NIH grants myself, and that's my primary source of my salary and has been since I started here, because that is what I do, and I love research. So one of the things that I'm really excited about is opportunities to expand our research mission at the Memory Counseling Program. And this is something that Marv and I have had a couple of fun conversations about. So there's a lot, I think, that can be done. Part of what motivated my transition into the Memory Counseling Program is my own desire, when I was a counselor, to see more evidence-based work for how we provide counseling services to people. At the time, I was providing services to children and families. But what I saw was that when children were coming to me for therapy, they were coming because they had had really bad life experiences. That was 95% of the reason that I saw people. But we were trying to fix that by giving them medications. And the explanation that I was given was that they had an imbalance in their neurotransmitters, and we were going to fix the imbalance in their neurotransmitters with drugs. And I thought, that's okay, but if they have an imbalance in their neurotransmitters, they got that from experiences that they had and interactions that they had with other people. They didn't get an imbalance in their neurotransmitters from drugs. So is there a way, if you can study the outcome of a drug on the brain, can you not also study the outcome of experiences that people have and interactions with other people? And could you not design experiences and interactions that could also restore balance to the brain? So that's always been the focus of my research in one way or another, is how can the experiences that we have, whether it's a counseling experience or lifestyle choices that you make, how do these experiences that we have shape your brain and promote brain health? And that is what we hope to expand, that kind of research for caregivers and for people with dementia through the MCP. So one project that I'll highlight is, because it is one that Marv has been helping us with and involved with, is one looking at neuromodulation. So it's a form of neurofeedback where people have EEG sensors on their brain. They're given auditory stimulus that helps to synchronize the brain waves in their brain. And the group that's doing this work has found reductions in stress in veterans with PTSD, also improvements in insomnia in veterans with PTSD and people who report insomnia. We're interested to see if that is something that could be done, for instance, in conjunction with talk therapy to help caregivers reduce and manage their stress by trying to look at how it affects their autonomic nervous system and pairing that with counseling work. So that's work that we're getting ready to get a pilot study off the ground to look at, and we're interested in expanding that kind of work where we use scientific evidence to improve the care and support that we give to caregivers. So what's next? The programs that we've had, like I said, outreach, education, individual couples and family therapy, and support groups. Ways that we're expanding this, one thing that we're trying to do is to do more telehealth. We have found, thanks to COVID, that not only can we do it, but we can do it well. And for some caregivers, it's actually the best way for them to connect, because they may be working and they can get time off at lunch to do a therapy appointment, but it's hard for them to drive and get in. Or they can join a support group, but they need someone to be home with their person with dementia. And if they can just log in from a different room, it's much more accessible to them. Also, with Wake Forest merger with Atrium, if we are able to expand our telehealth capacity, we will also have the ability to expand our services to a much broader reach of people than we've been able to serve. As an example of this, in our current caregiver support group, we have a woman who's been logging in from Salisbury every week. Obviously, she couldn't drive here for support group from Salisbury, but she has been really grateful to have the opportunity to join our groups. We've also been running the groups this time at a predominantly African American church that is across town. It was a gift to us because Wake said that we had to be able to run all of our group space 6 feet apart, but we don't have a space that's big enough to do that with 10 to 16 people. The church does. It's also made our services more accessible to the people in the church, and we've been running that group hybrid so that people can log in remotely. So we're really excited about that collaboration, and we're hoping to build out similar collaborations, again, to make these services more accessible to people across the community. And we're looking to build out our research program. And with that, I would like to thank Marv again for inviting me and for all his support of the program, to Ed and Rebecca and the Strickland family for honoring them, and to all the people who provided philanthropic support for all the work that you're seeing for the past 10 years. Thank you. Yes. Thomas.
May I give your program a plug?
Yes, please.
Well, 11th year of Alzheimer's. Christina mentioned that one of the things is that caregivers have a lot of stress in their life, but the most damaging part is the stress that is unknown that affects your human body. So please take advantage of it and get in touch with them. If not, or a friend or your neighbor, because it really does work and it can save your life. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Is it possible to re-implement the program that was existing before COVID with Dr. Shaw out here?
I can talk with, I will talk with Samantha and see what our bandwidth is. But yes, I would think that it would be. We've been expanding, we've been kind of stepping back out. I've been a little cautious about each commitment because we want to make, I've been a little cautious as we're building back out of each commitment. We're still one staff person lower than what we were previously. But I think that we should be able to do that. And I will talk with Samantha about how we would want to staff that and, what time it would need to be. I'm not sure if you all were meeting in the mornings or in the evenings.
We were meeting at 3 or 4 o'clock on a Thursday.
It was on a Tuesday, I think. It was the first Tuesday of the month.
Okay.
And by the way, Barbara and I were in his first visit here, and that happened to be, according to my calendar, February of 2014.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it'd be in the afternoon.
And it was very well attended.
Okay.
Yes.
A lot of people came.
Yeah, and this is something, like I said, that we want to do. We really want to be out in the community in general. It's a lot to ask of caregivers to come into a hospital setting. It's not a great setting, and people can't always travel. So it is absolutely something that we want to build back to do and do more of, to be coming to people where they are instead of expecting people to come to us. So that's very much within what we want to be doing.
We have space.
You do have space, and this is beautiful.
Do you know who to
The other
contact? Do you,
I will talk with, here to work out the space. No, I would probably just have reached out. I got you, Marv.
contact?
Yeah, I was going to say, I would have just asked Marv, is there somebody else?
That's fine. Or actually, well, it could be.
Okay.
Pamela Neal was our director before on staff.
Okay.
She could not be here today because she had to go to the doctor.
The other thing is that I know you're really into dementia, but caregivers of any shape and form have benefits from this program. Ed didn't care that we weren't caregiving for a dementia patient.
Marv and I were also talking about that.
It needs to be more openly advertised because the support for the rest of us is equally important.
Agreed. And we have never excluded anyone because they are not caring for someone with dementia. For the 10-week groups that we run, we were realizing, I was literally just talking with Marv about this because in the partnership with the church, they sent several people who were not caregivers for dementia. We use a book for those 10-week groups, and they have an educational component, and all the education is focused around dementia so that people can get the information that they need, like Tom was saying. So for those groups, I don't know that people are welcome to attend, but they wouldn't be getting the same disease education about their specific disease. But we let everybody stay, and they enjoyed it anyway. And like you said, they got the caregiving support out of it, and they still got a lot of information just about caring for themselves. I think that the disease education portion was just a little less relevant for the people who were not caring for someone with dementia. And for the monthly support groups, it doesn't matter as much. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks again.
Thank
Appreciate
you all
it.
very much.
One thing very quickly, I don't know whether you noticed it or not, but in the research that she had up there, the Sarasette program, I've asked Christina to, next spring, put together a presentation and talk about the research that they're doing to relieve the stress on caregivers.
Mhm.
So sometime this spring, we haven't decided it yet, but again, thank you.
Yes, and
Thanks,
we're
everyone.
getting ready to start that study, and we have at least one caregiver who's lined up and ready to go. So I am 100% sure we'll have data to show you in April. That should be interesting.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Good. Thanks,